Welcome back to Great Lakes Junction, everyone. So my son moved into part of the rec room in the basement. It was a big L-shaped rec room, and we wanted to put up a wall, but I don't want to make a permanent wall. I don't want to screw into the floor or the ceiling and mess anything up, because it's only meant to be temporary. So, you know, someday we want to sell the place. I want to take the wall back out of it and then not have anything to repair. So my neighbor's doing a renovation and throwing out a bunch of doors. So I'm going to use the doors to build a false wall. So we're going to plane down some 2x4s. I only need maybe one for this part of the project. The same thickness as the door, and where the door handles were, I'm going to use the 2x4s to put inside the door to fill in that hole. So we'll have a nice solid wall when we're done with a bunch of door handle holes in it. So we'll get started on that project and we'll see how this turns out. So all I'm doing here is where your lock mechanism normally is in the door. I'm just cutting it out completely for the 2x4 so I can push the 2x4 in to cover up the hole from the door handle. So we'll just put a little bit of glue on it. So this doesn't have to be perfectly flat here because the doors are all going to be butted together to form a wall, so you're not going to see this end, but it covers up that hole from where the door handle is, and we'll show you how we're going to finish this off later. So now we're going to finish filling in the hole where the actual handle was. So I'm just going to use auto body filler or Bondo to fill those holes in. It's a little humid out today, so I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've worked with this stuff. And it's a colored cream hardener that you use in this. And when you're mixing, it'll change color. So the material itself is, without the hardener, is a gray colored, and you can get different colors of it. This one's a gray with a red cream hardener, so I can see when it's mixed. I don't know how well it shows up on there. So you can see the red lines in it, so the hardener is not mixed in thoroughly yet. You need a consistent color, but you have to work fairly quick with it. You'll get to know, if you've never used it before, you'll get to learn how much hardener, and it does depend a great deal on temperature and humidity. Just a trick, if you're doing body work with Bondo at all, if you just leave a roll of Bondo on the edge of your applicator and let that harden, it'll break right off of that flexible applicator when it's hardened, and your applicator will have a nice clean edge again. It's already starting to set up, so the amount of hardener we had was good. We'll have to set more than that before we can start sanding it. So we'll let it set, we'll come back, we'll start sanding that down and see if we can get everything nice and flat before they have to be painted. So I had a little bit too much hardener in at that time. I used up most of it. I got everything done that I needed to get done with it. But so it's really humid out, and the amount of hardener I put in, it hardened up, started hardening up in about 60 seconds. So it starts out, it just gets kind of like a rubbery texture to it as it starts setting up, but you can't spread it. So we wasted a little bit, but we got done what we wanted to. If you're going to work with Bondo at all, when you're mixing it, have something that's smooth. I got an old piece of plexiglass I was using. You can buy pieces of plastic, almost like a paint palette, to mix it on. Don't use something rough like a piece of plywood or something like that. It's just going to give yourself more grief than you need. So that's all there is to working with Bondo. It takes a little bit of practice to get used to how much hardener to put in it and how fast you can spread it where you want to put it for your working time before it starts to set up on you. So we're all filled in, we're all sanded down nice and smooth now. So these doors are ready to be primed. I don't think we'll paint them just yet. We'll wait until we get around to painting that room in the basement and then decide what color we're going to actually paint them. But I can probably get the primer put on today. There's our first coat of primer is done on the doors, so we'll let that dry up a little bit. We'll do a second coat. Hopefully that'll dry fast enough that we can flip them all over and start on the other side. Well, we're ready for the final coat of paint. So we did 2 coats of primer, both sides with a roller yesterday, let that dry. I've decided to spray paint for the finished coat. It's quicker. I can do putting temporary legs on them to hold them up like this. I can do both sides at the same time. Well, that does the painting. So we'll let these sit for a couple of hours. We'll come back, see if they need another coat or not. The spray gun puts it on fairly even. So as long as it's thick enough to cover the shadowing effect that was in the primer, we'll be okay. We won't need another coat, but we'll see. I had to thin the paint down a little bit to go through the spray gun, so it may need a second coat. We'll find that out in a bit. So these are our painted doors. The idea, this box up here at the top is covering a heat duct that's inside, and there's a narrow gap between the heat duct and this brick around the fireplace. So we want to just attach these all together. We're going to use a strip of wood across the top and the bottom, and then we'll just slide into this bit of a pocket here so it can rest that way. And when we get to that end, we'll do a 90-degree turn and put a door and a half in the opposite direction to create an L shape, and that should give it the support from just wanting to tip over. So there's no beams having to be installed, no 2x4s need to be attached anywhere. So later on when we decide to get rid of this, there's nothing else to fix up.
side to help.
Well, we just need to get the bottom lined up to go in there.
Yeah.
Watch your fingers.
Yep. The door's too small.
Kick the bottom out a little bit in the corner. Whoa, whoa. That'll do. Okay, so we're finished that. The quickest wall you'll ever build without putting any permanent structures in your home. If you have the scenario where that'll work out, of course. So when we paint the rest of this rec room, we'll give that another coat, and then we'll do the end of the door here. I didn't know which door would end up here, so I didn't paint them. So it'll get another coat of paint yet to match everything else when it's all painted. And this is done. Thank you very much for watching.